Good afternoon. Friends, family, loved ones, enemies, contributors, distractors. This is Kevin Lewis on the Blueprint. And this week's show is called The Osage and the Mirror. And before I begin on that, the Osage and what the Osage actually is, or who they actually are, I'm going to start with a preface to the conversation. Now, when you have, I'm going to say this, when you have purpose, dedication, drive, and intent, that will destroy any ambiguity and ambivalence of any situation. The ambiguity and ambivalence of any situation. And it'll bring about a confluence or a merger or a merging of the events that at hand, or whatever the episode is, or what it is, or whatever it is that you're experiencing. Even in things that are seemingly in contrast or contradiction with your agenda or your purpose. So, ambiguity and let me explain what ambiguity means. Ambiguity is having mixed or unclear understanding of something. Something that has ambiguity to it, you can be open-minded. It can have different meanings. That's what ambiguity is. And anything that has that is ambiguous or unclear to you will cease to exist when you have drive, dedication, a purpose, and intent. And the difference between ambiguity and being ambivalent of something, having ambivalence of something, is ambivalence is emotional. Ambivalence is you don't know how you feel about something. You don't know if you're happy about it or you're uncertain about the way you feel emotionally. So when you have purpose, drive, intent, and dedication about something, those things, the ambivalence and the ambiguity of something starts to disappear. And I'm going to explain what I mean by that. And it will be a confluence. You will be that point of mergence in the understanding or the emotional feelings that you have about any circumstance. So this is what I mean. If you are dedicated to peace, everything in your mind, everything that you see, even if it's in contrast with each other or a conflict with each other, a confliction, it will come back around to peace that you have in your mind. If it was something that has nothing to do with peace and is the opposite of peace, in your mind, you're going to say, this is why we need to be at peace, or this is why peace is important. If you're seeing a conflict and you're a peaceful person or you're a person that's seeking peace, fighting for peace, when you see that conflict, you're going to abstract all the negativity with that conflict and say, this is why I do what I do. This is why peace is needed. This is an example of why peace is needed. If you see something that is peaceful, it's going to do what? The same thing. It's going to confirm why you think peace is important, why we need peace. You're going to abstract from everything that you see, and that's going to influence your argument and your agenda, or be an influence on your argument and your agenda. If you are seeking peace or you're speaking about peace and you see a butterfly, you're going to abstract everything from that, the beauty of that butterfly, as saying that that butterfly is at peace. Look at the peacefulness and the beauty of that butterfly. Able to just flutter around and go from here and there and without a care in the world. This is what we need, and this is why we need it. And if you see the carnage of war or conflict, you're going to say, this is why we need peace. That's what that statement meant that I was saying. If you are a person seeking freedom, needing freedom, wanting freedom, everything that you see, if that is your purpose, your intent, your drive, and you're dedicated to it, when you everything you see, you're gonna relate that to freedom. If you see a butterfly like the other person that's seeking peace, they may be free. If you're a slave or enslaved or locked up, you're going to see the bird flying, and you're going to abstract from that flight, and you're going to say, man, if I only had wings. Or that's what it's like to be free, to go anywhere at any time that you want. And anytime you see something that lacks freedom or the ability to go where it wants, to get away from something, a prey animal trying to get away from a predator and unable to escape, you're going to abstract from that the detrimental parts of that and say, this is why I need freedom, or we need freedom, because I feel trapped. I feel like this fly in this spider web, entangled, can't get away, imminent danger and death if I don't get away. That's if you have purpose, dedication, drive, and intent. Everything, there will be a confluence in everything that you see that's going to come back to what it is that you are dedicated to. You're going to see those qualities. That's what I meant in that opening statement. So when you see a movie and you don't understand the end, the ambiguity of that movie, you're going to say, and you're going to talk to other people, did you understand? I didn't really understand what they were getting at. Or this is what I felt. Sometimes a movie will have ambiguity to it to make you think. And the way a person thinks tells you a lot about that person. I could see a movie and the ending of it, I say, yeah, this is what I think about that. And somebody says, oh, that's what you got. Well, I got something totally different. And maybe that was the purpose, to make people think and discuss how they feel. Now, if it's a thing that messes with your feelings, you know, that's not the ambiguity of it. That's the ambivalence of it. When I had the discussion on the other show about the holidays, and my question when I was having that discussion about the holidays that we celebrate was actually about, like, thinking about Thanksgiving. Some people that have a certain mindset, they think that it's negative and that we shouldn't be celebrating it. Others see that do celebrate it. They say, well, I see nothing wrong with it. It's a time to get together, enjoy. So my thing was, what's the balance? If I'm concerned about the health and welfare of my people, can I say that having a Thanksgiving dinner where you're getting family together and everybody's happy, is that a detriment to my people? Is that good, bad? And this is something that we have to look at, because we automatically jump to conclusions that we feel in our heart, because if this person doesn't celebrate it, everything that has to do with Thanksgiving is negative and they don't care. Even the good things don't matter. So you have to have that discussion. If I look at a book, a science book, a physics book, and I look at the laws of inertia, because of my purpose, my drive, my intent, my agenda, I'm going to see, well, objects at rest tend to stay at rest unless acted upon by an outside force, and objects in motion will continue to be in motion until acted upon by outside force. I'm going to relate that to my drive, to my intent and my agenda, and what I see as a purpose. If things are not going the way I want them to go in the Black community, and they are in motion in a certain way, then we need to do something to stop it from being in motion. We have to be an outside force that's stopping things from moving in a certain direction, even if it's a younger generation. Instead of complaining about it, you have to move in and stop it, or that object that's in motion will continue in motion that is in and not be affected by outside force. And so when I'm reading that, I'm thinking, well, we need to be outside forces. We need to be that outside force that's stopping it from moving in that direction if we don't like the direction that it's moving at, or if something isn't moving in the direction we need it to move. If we need more leaders and we don't have leadership, if we need more activists and we see stagnation in our community, a stagnant community, and we need those things to move, then we have to be an outside force to get them to move. That's what happened when I see the laws of inertia in the physics books that has nothing to do, so it seems, with being pro-Black, Afrocentric, or activist, or whatever you want to be in the Black community. Because everything you see will come back. You will abstract those things and use it as a tool for your agenda. I'd like to thank some of y'all that showed up. I don't expect that this will be a long show today. Andrea, I appreciate you showing up, sister, and Aisha, Coretta, Sakina, Walaikum Assalam, sister, Sharon, Hotep, sister, and Kay, I appreciate you showing up, and Avelina, appreciate y'all showing up to the blueprint. So this is what I'm talking about, and this is going to lead to what I want to get into with the title of it, the Osage in the Mirror. So if I look at, say, like I said, Thanksgiving, and that's, to me, that's like the perfect holiday. It's not a religious holiday, because you arguing, if that's not your religion, that's not your place to argue about how people celebrate their religion and do what they do on their religious holidays like Christmas. But if it's a national holiday and it's good things that come from it, who am I to argue with the benefits of Thanksgiving? And if you're going to celebrate the 4th of July, and this is what I don't understand, and I believe it's a contradiction. If you're going to celebrate the 4th of July and say, well, I don't do Thanksgiving, or vice versa. Because I look at those two holidays as being connected. To me, Thanksgiving is an oppressor's holiday celebrating coming here, the beginning of a relationship. And we know how that relationship ended. To me, that's like if you were in a marriage, Independence Day is celebrating the anniversary of the marriage, or your marriage. To me, Thanksgiving is celebrating the day that y'all met. So if I look at what happened in this country, and I could say, I know it's no Native Americans that's going to celebrate Thanksgiving. Why would they? And I guess it'd be the same reason that we have Hispanic people, Mexican people in San Antonio celebrating the Battle of Flowers, or anybody in Texas, Hispanic people, Mexican, whatever you want to say, celebrating um, the Battle of Flowers. And mainly the reason they do it is in ignorance. You're celebrating a day that is commemorating you losing a war to get your land taken from you. And many people just blindly celebrate. Or me celebrating it if I'm against the oppression that happened with the European invasions. Why would I celebrate one of their occasions? Thanksgiving, the genocide that followed it. Now, unless we turn it into, well, you know what, we turned it into something positive. If that's your reasoning. You know, they could make a holiday out of the death of Malcolm X, the anniversary of the death of Malcolm X. Or they could say November the 11th. This is the day we're going to say whatever. And the reason that they brought it up, that because that's the day that they killed Nat Turner. They executed Nat Turner. And we could say, well, it means something else and it means something else to us. But in reality, if the reason they came up with this date or this date that they killed Malcolm X or the date that they, you know, shot Martin Luther King and they call it whatever day, it began as whatever day. And then we say, well, you know, we found out what it meant. But yeah, this is a day that of just celebrating and drinking and whatever. And it's good to get with family and celebrate and drink. I understand both sides of the argument. If they take the N word and what it meant to a lot of our ancestors that was in slavery in the Jim Crow era, and now it means something positive for us instead of something negative, is that the same thing? Of those people, that's the older people that say, no, that word is bad, you shouldn't be using it. Oh, well, it doesn't mean it's something bad now. I don't care how it originated in this country. I'm not talking about going back to Negas and all this stuff in Africa. I'm talking about what they used it for here. And we turned around and we used it for something positive. How do you feel about that? So I'm going to read some of y'all comments. Curtis says, so how would a person go about change? Even though they don't celebrate holidays, but your family does. And actually, we had a discussion on this on the John Kev show yesterday. And my thing is, the question has to be asked about those that say, well, I don't have, if you don't celebrate it, then don't go. Just like somebody having a birthday party in your family or that you don't deal with, then don't go. If I go or I talk about them that's doing it, I'm going to cause more friction. That's how I see that. If it's a good thing for family to get together, why am I going to sit there and argue about them getting together? What I said yesterday on the John Kev show was people would ask me why I don't do something. And as far as Thanksgiving is concerned, and when they have Thanksgiving parties at work or whatever, potlucks and things like that, and I don't partake. And it's not just the history of it. My thing is, I tell them, well, you know, it's people in the world starving. It's people in America starving. And I think that it's actually sacrilegious for anybody, a nation, to have a feast and people just glutton every type of food they can and just say, oh, I'm so fat and full and I ate this and I ate that. And yeah, I saw the videos of the ladies singing macaroni and all these things that's going to be there, and everybody, this is just me personally. I'm not attacking anybody else. I'm talking about me personally. So when I talk to people, I say, you know what, to me, if that would be like something biblical that people 500 years, 1,000 years from now say, you know, America, before she used to do wicked things, and this is some of the wicked things that she did. They had a day where everybody that could afford the food, they ate and they feasted. and they just stuffed themselves for days. And it was part of America starving, or people around the world starving. This is just me. And I would say, you know what? If it was a day that people went out and fed other people, if you're going to take the lie of the Thanksgiving celebration and say the Europeans came here and the Native Americans helped them learn how to eat and what to eat and help them help feed them of people that were starving, then shouldn't a holiday be about going out and feeding people that's starving, looking at it from the Native American perspective? And you're thankful that somebody did something for you, and so you should be going out and returning that favor. That's how I would see that holiday should be, but it's not that. So since it's not that, I'm not going to partake in it, on top of it being a bunch of lies anyway. But my thing is, you can't. It's just like a Bible thumper. You can't bash people over the head and think you're not going to change Thanksgiving. We're not gonna stop Thanksgiving. Only thing we could do is change the minds of people from celebrating Thanksgiving. I think that has to be something gradual. That maybe we would do Juneteenth, and that would be the day that all our family get together and have this feast, festival, and whatever. We could change it and have it to something different, a different day or whatever, just to take it out of or away from the anniversary of the genocide of the people that was here that helped you. And to me, that makes it more atrocious. The fact that the people that was here helped you and they fed you, and you celebrate that despite, and see, it wasn't celebrated. This Thanksgiving was not celebrated until I believe it hasn't even been a holiday that long in the context of this country. And, I didn't really want to get into all of that. That's not what the subject is, but it's a good segue into the Osage people. And I hope what Curtis was saying, I appreciate you showing up. That's a good question. And my thing is, it's going to change over time. Just like we've been doing Thanksgiving, my family have been doing Thanksgiving since I was born. I'm talking about my immediate family. And, that's something that families do. And it's hard to stop people from doing something that they've been doing for generations. And that object that's in motion is going to stay in motion unless acted upon by an outside force. And that outside force has to be strong enough to stop that motion. And that motion is not going to be stopped until generations are embedded with that mindset that this is something that we shouldn't be doing. I don't want to do. Until that time, I think that we have to deal with slowly. People are going to start to matriculate away from it. Some people, they're going to cling on to it. And I think that's gradually and slowly. I think when I was coming up, celebrating the 4th of July was a big thing. It wasn't as big as the Juneteenth where I grew up at, but it wasn't a conscious thing of saying, well, you know what, we didn't have any independence. We didn't have no freedom then. If you were becoming conscious and saying, you know what, America this and this is, you separating yourself from white America and black America, understand that there's a different set of rules, a different history, and it should be a different celebration. Why am I celebrating if that was a marriage and that person, the day that they met my I'm going to say family member, because I don't want to put that on a particular family member, and this is what I'm saying. If a family member a woman in my family met some guy on this date, and I remember this is when y'all met. Y'all ended up getting married. This person slaughtered her, murdered her, and whatever. And I'm not going to celebrate the day they met. I'm not going to celebrate their anniversary. This is what I'm saying. So if we continue to do what we're doing, it's going to be business as usual. What is it going to harm? What has it harmed? To me, it's just your mindset and something. I don't think Thanksgiving is harmful to black people. Black people getting together to have food. Those are the things that's good about Thanksgiving. Family getting together, you know, having those times and memories and things like that. That's it's nothing bad about that. I think it's something bad about today, and that's something that we have to weigh as individuals and individual families. But I appreciate the question. I'm gonna read a comment from. She said, "I actually know a few Native Americans who celebrate Thanksgiving. I thought that was weird, and that's that is kind of weird, but I don't think it's as odd as if you came here to San Antonio. You see how many Mexicans go to Fiesta Day and celebrate Fiesta, and they don't understand what they're celebrating. And if any of us actually look into Fiesta Day, like we're black people, that has nothing really, we don't care one way or another. We just enjoy the festivities. But if you look at the history of what Battle of Flowers and why that came about, the women that wanted to commemorate the soldiers that won the battle, that beat the Mexican army and took their land, and they're happy about it. It's almost like a Thanksgiving for Texas. And you'll see a lot of people here that's Mexican descent, they're celebrating. Some of them doing it out of ignorance. Some of them don't care. It doesn't matter. I'm an American now. So I don't think it's that odd. I know some Mexican people here that sit there and will shout, "Build a wall," you know, keep them keep the Mexicans out, keep them from the border and the aliens out. And it's like, you probably, your family probably got here the same way. Some of y'all, some of them probably, just because it's been 3 generations or 4 generations ago, they probably snuck across the border too. How we feel about that, me personally, that's not my conflict. To me, this was Mexico, so they're not sneaking across the border. The border was moved. So to me, this was their land, but that's up to the individual. So Native Americans celebrating Thanksgiving, that's we have people like that in every culture and every race. We definitely have black people, like we have black people, and y'all sit up here and y'all be sharing Charleston White, and this dude be constantly wearing Confederate hats and scarves and stuff like that. The same stuff that the skinheads and the white nationalists and white supremacist groups champion now. Whatever people want to say it meant at a certain time, if it meant that at a certain time, I know what it still means today. I only see a certain people wearing that Confederate flag, anything with that Confederate flag. And here you got some black people that want to champion it and wear it and know that they pissing other black people off. And a lot of us are still listening to everything this clown says and try to share videos of him saying something. And I'm telling people, don't share anything with me, with him. So, I mean, those people are all around. It's some of us that think that's, you know, pro. I mean, I think what Herschel Walker said, that white people deserve reparations. Instead of what he's like, what about giving white people reparations? They deserve reparations. It's those all around. But I don't think they speak for the majority. But I appreciate that comment. So the Thanksgiving thing, the slaughtering and all that, that's a segue into the Osage people. The title of this show is The Osage in the Mirror. Now, who are the Osage? I never knew what the Osage was until I watched the movie recently. I believe the name of it was Killers of the Flower Moon. And it had Robert De Niro. Good actors in it. It was I didn't know what it was about. Then once I saw the movie, I started doing some research on it to validate, to see how correct the movie is. It's a movie about actual events. It's historical. The Osage tribe here in America. And what does that have to do with us and the blueprint? Purpose, dedication, drive, and intent will destroy any ambiguity that one comes across, even if it seems and create a confluence, emergence in things that seem like they're not even related or in contradiction. Native Americans, a tribe I never heard of, me watching the movie, spoiler alert. I don't know if you can have a spoiler alert on something that actually happened. Like if I was watching Malcolm X and I told somebody, oh man, see that movie, you're going to love it. He died at the end. And they'd be like, don't tell me. Like, yeah, well, everybody know he dies in the end. The Osage tribe was a tribe is a tribe here. They're still around. I think it's Martin Scorsese uh, did this movie, Killers of the Flower Moon. Um, like I said, Robert De Niro is in it. And I'm drawing a blank on the other dude that's in it. Everybody know who he played in Titanic. And also know somebody gonna say, oh, it's so and so. But um, how do they relate to black people? How do they relate? How? Why am I saying the Osage in the mirror? The Osage tribe was a tribe that was in a territory, and when you try to say a state, because the state thing came with the United States, so the Native American tribes had territories, and they was in a territory between the Missouri, Mississippi, and Arkansas. Coming up, they history go back 1700, 1800s. You could look them up. So what is so pertinent about this, and why would they make a movie about this? What happened? It was something called the Osage murders. Oh, Sharon said Leo DiCaprio. She said Leo D. Yeah, Leo. Um, Leonardo. Aisha said Leonardo. I guess Sharon knows him better. She calls him Leo. But Leonardo DiCaprio. This now, I'm not gonna say go watch this movie or anything like that, because if you may like it, you may not. This is historical events, and I'm gonna tell you the events that happened and how I think it pertains to us looking in the mirror. This tribe was displaced. It was the Indian Act, the Indian Removal Act that came into effect, I believe it was 1830. The Europeans came over here after they was saved by the Native Americans, and they start invading America and infesting America and telling the people to move. So they came up with the Indian Removal Act in 1830, which was telling the Indians, hey, I know you've been here for centuries, but we need some more space. We got more people. We got company coming, and they plan on staying. So we need y'all to move out of this land, take this other land over here. And sometimes what was happening is the land that they was moving or displacing some of these tribes into was already another tribe there. So it was conflict between the tribes. I believe the Osage and the I'm gonna say the Comanches. They was fighting because the Comanches is like, this is our land. Why y'all totally different people? If that man is putting y'all out, y'all need to fight with him. Y'all ain't coming in my house or whatever. So this is the backdrop of that. So the government stepped in to stop the feuds and the war between the tribes. They displaced those Osage again. They had them in Oklahoma. They moved to Kansas, and then they moved them back to Oklahoma territory around the turn of the century, 1900. Oklahoma territory that they were in struck oil, which made the owners of that land rich. Around the turn of the century, if we think about the automobile, um, machines, when you start having machine industry, those machines, the friction between machines, they need oil. Automobiles need oil. Oil became gold. The Osage people were the owners of land where black gold was struck, oil. They had no use for it. They didn't have any machinery and vehicles. What happened, they became the richest people per capita in the world. That was their title. That tribe was the richest people in the world. That's what they were labeled. Everyone that owned land there, the whole tribe, it was just split up. So they was living large. If you look at the movie, if you look at actual photographs of them, they look like Europeans. They were dressing in suits. top hats. The women had on the dresses, the long dresses, European. They were elegant. They had automobiles and they didn't even have to drive them. They had chauffeurs. Early 1900s. The Europeans or the white Americans was coming over there in droves to work for the Indians. For the I hate to say Indians, they call it the Osage Indian murders, but they Native Americans. They came there to work. They was getting off the trains. I want to be a chauffeur. I want to be a cab driver. I want to do something for you. And what happened? They start marrying into the Osage tribes. They wasn't really acting like tribes anymore. They were just towns of people that was rich, wealthy, had, you know, towns that was they had automobiles. They didn't even have to drive. They were driving cars at some time, but so what happened is the Europeans came over there and they came up with a plan. And this is what the movie is about. The actual federal trials. They started killing, they were murdering, marrying into the tribe. These white men marrying Native American women that was wealthy and killing them for their inheritance. It's called the Osage murders. Between 60 and hundreds of Native Americans were being murdered for their inheritance. Before you could get their inheritance, you had to be married to them or your kids. And this is how bad they were killing the kids. If they had a baby with the woman, and actually their whole intent was not the love of their own kids. They were letting their own kids die, but they was killing the family members. And they would purposely go out to marry into the Native Americans, and then they were killing them and trying to make it look like suicides and things like that. The other part of that was happening was the Native Americans were getting sick from eating the European food, the diets. The Native Americans had their own way of living, their own foods, living off the land. And when the Europeans came, when they started eating what the Europeans would, their diets, the Native Americans was getting diabetes. This was something that was afflicting the Osage people. They were getting diabetes, so they needed insulin. The way that they started murdering them at that point, when they start figuring out these people became rich, they stopped eating off the land or doing things that they used to do and start trying to be rich and eat what the Europeans were eating, waffles and things like that. And they were getting diabetes, they were getting sick, and a lot of them were dying, but it was taking a while for you to die from diabetes. So what they started doing, they started poisoning the insulin. At first, they were just shooting them and then putting a gun in their hand. They had no ballistics to show that this person actually pulled the trigger or whatever. They just come up and shoot them and then put the gun in their hand. And Dwayne, I appreciate you showing up. He said birthright. And Sakina, she said, I recently saw that movie. It was quite informative. It's a long movie. And I'm linking it to us. Now, I'm going to say this. The dogs that we have, and a wolf, they share 99% DNA. Dogs, by being around humans, have built up an intolerance for starch because the scraps that they eat from us, we have a lot of food that have starch in it, breads and things like that. A wolf is not going to get that in a while. Rice, cooked rice and things like that, or whatever we have, potatoes, baked potatoes, fried potatoes. A lot of times dogs come in contact with them. One thing that dogs have that the wolf don't have is an intolerance for starchy foods because of his proximity to man that the wolf don't share. This is the same thing that was happening with the Native Americans. It's going to take a while before they build up a tolerance for the different food that they started being exposed to. This is what the Osage tribe started doing because they was glitzy now. They were rich, the richest people in the world. They had no care. They didn't sit up there and build cities and things like that, or try to start automobile plants or industries and nothing like that. This is the same time that the Black Wall Street was being decimated, and you actually see that on the movie. But I believe Mr. Hale was investigated by the FBI. This was the FBI's first case. And they were able to pin some of the murders on some of the people there, and that's what the movie is about. But to me, the more interesting thing is the parallel between what they did that would lead into their destruction and what we do that lead to our psychological destruction. I think the Osage people, if they would have stuck to themselves like they were when the Europeans didn't give a damn about them. They weren't in a rush to marry into any Native American tribe. They were just in a rush to get them out of the way so they could take their land until their inheritance meant something. Then this tribe changed the way that they were living, changed their nature, and started being murdered for it, and then started dying naturally from it. That's what I got from that movie. The Europeans infected them psychologically, physically. They were getting physically sick from the natural ailments that the Europeans have. The Native Americans here didn't have a tolerance for that. Your body haven't built up an immunity for it. So they were dying anyway. This is something that was mentioned in the movie. They're going to die anyway. They didn't have an immunity. The Europeans acted with impunity because there was no one to check them for doing the things that they were doing until the federal government stepped in. And just like Sharon said, the European diet is still killing us. That's why I'm saying the Osage in the mirror. Some of the things are parallel. They're the same. That's happening. It's just at a different time. And a lot of us, when we get money, who we try to act like? We try to act like the very people that we say are oppressing us and killing us slowly. The things that we're doing, slowly dying as a people, if not physically, but as a people. We're dying, trying to assimilate, culture assimilation. It's okay for homosexuality. It's okay to do the drugs that they're introducing to us. It's okay to not react when people are killing your kids, killing your women, attacking your women. React in a certain way. Go to court. The courts are the ones that's on the sides of those that's doing the murders. The courts is on the side of those who are oppressing us. We changed our diet. We changed the way we live. We're changing our nature. We're celebrating holidays that they celebrate. And it's okay. If you ask an Osage person at that time, what is wrong with what you're doing, they're going to say, actually, nothing. I'm rich. This is how I should be living. They married into those that wanted them dead. And I'm not just talking about a physical marriage with us. People can marry whoever they want to marry, but I'm saying the marriage of your mind is what I'm talking about. Being immune within your community is what I'm talking about. We have to abstract some of the things that are killing us that we are assimilating to and accepting as being American. A Eurocentral mindset set of getting rich, having money, and being an individual. Individualism. That's a European concept. That's something that's affecting us, that's killing us as a people. We have always been a tribal people before we came here and got infected. And I don't want to say that. But this is what I'm talking about. This is why it's the Osage in the mirror. The sickness that they got from the Europeans was a physical sickness and a mental sickness that went against their nature, that was detrimental to their people. When they could have stayed and remained the richest people per capita in the world and came into the 21st century, maybe. But I know the route that they took led to their destruction against a people that was killing. Now you're talking about family members killing family members constantly, daily. My brother-in-law, my sister-in-law, the in-laws constantly killing who they're with. Somebody gets into some money, and this woman, the European woman, wants to marry my brother, and in a couple of months, my brother ends up dead. She gets his inheritance. My sister marries somebody else, and within a year or so, 2 years, my sister ends up dead. They have to see what they had to see what was happening. Some of them did. What was happening? They went to the local law enforcement, and they were in on it too. The dentists, the doctors, everyone in that community that was European was in on their murders. The doctors that was giving them insulin, injecting them with insulin that was poisoned, that was going to kill them quicker. Sakina said, assimilation can lead to destruction and death. I appreciate the comment. Sharon said, Africans are communal people. We think different. We should. But if that is if that is so, then why do we constantly have to preach about buying black? That should be a natural thing for us. Think about what we're saying. We're naturally Africans are communal people. We're tribal people. We always talk about the proverbial village. But every time we get into some money, what do? We abandon the village. This is why our villages have been abandoned. The proverbial village. I'm not talking about actually the hood, but even if I move out of the hood, my money should stay in the hood because I should be going back into the hood to buy everything I need. A Walk on the River, San Antonio movie about the black community. What did they come up with? We got rid of segregation, and that's fine. That's a legal thing. But we abandoned our businesses for the other businesses, for the ones that we thought were a step up, were more classy, that even treated us more trashy. That mental illness that happened to the Osage people happened to us, and it's still happening to us. We rather patronize businesses because of their name, patronize food places because they're more elegant and they don't care about us. We rather wear clothes, Italian names and all these things because we give it more value. And we got businesses, black businesses that's struggling. Schools. Here we are. We're the best athletes in America. We're the best athletes in the world. Look at the Olympic track teams. Look at the Olympic boxing teams, the history of it. If America is winning most of the medals and America is nowhere big as China or Russia or how the people of a lot of these other countries, but yet we're constantly, you look at Jamaica, their track teams are notorious. If that's one thing they do, they're going to have a track team and they're going to go against our track team. And it's going to constantly be something between us and them. We have the athletes, and their athletes going to look exactly like ours. You could take the uniforms and swap them out, and you wouldn't even know the difference. The best athletes in the world, the best student athletes in the world. And the athletes for these schools are what generates the most revenue for the schools by far. And yet many of us are going to theirs, while ours are suffering and crumbling and falling apart. Our black schools are Afrocentric in their curriculum. These other schools that we're sending our kids to, that black oil, the ones that's profiting off of that black oil, care nothing about our communities or our people or Africa or our history. In fact, they're going to take books out of their classrooms about our history. But yet we keep going there like the Osage people while they're killing us and they're killing our community. They're not giving back to our community as we give to their schools that's producing more white judges and politicians, politicians that's crucifying us in the courtrooms, crucifying our kids, freeing up the police officers that's murdering us on the side of the road. 9 times out of 10, the 10th time, yes, somebody got convicted, yeah. But most of the time, that's not what's happening. And I guarantee you, if any of those judges and attorneys, if you looked at their wall and the schools they went to, it's going to be the same schools that we're creating all this revenue for on the football, the track, and the basketball courts. The football fields, the track fields, and the basketball courts. The Osage in the mirror. And until we start to slowly matriculate away from this, the death and the destruction of our people is going to continue to happen. We have to change our mindset, just like we have to do with the holidays that we celebrate. And we can look at the good points. Hey, on Thanksgiving, we get to enjoy time with our family. You go to this school, you maybe make it to the NFL and the NBA, and that's not helping us in the long run. It's still killing us slowly. And the individuality, that's the European concept, not the communal, not the tribal. That doesn't help the village. So we are slowly dying in this country. And we have to keep doing shows like this, talk shows, talking about our ancestors, fighting, and oppression. I appreciate all the comments and everybody that showed up. Hopefully I have a better show for y'all next week. This is Kevin Lewis on The Blueprint. Peace.